Most people waiting for the housing market to get cheaper think they're being patient. But what they're actually doing is waiting for a version of the market that no longer exists. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Housing isn't expensive right now because something is broken. It's expensive because the system changed. And that change is already locked in. And every time interest rates tick down, people say, okay, now affordability will improve. And every time prices stall, people say, this is it, the crash is coming. And yet, nothing happens. Prices don't fall meaningfully, inventory doesn't come back, and the moment buyers sense opportunity, competition snaps right back into place. That's not a coincidence. It's a constraint. And over the past few years, housing stopped behaving like a normal market, one where prices rise, fall, and correct. It became something closer to a locked system where supply barely moves, and owners don't sell, and demand doesn't just disappear because conditions get harder. And once you understand the why that happened, something becomes very clear. This isn't a short-term cycle. It's not about this year's rates, and it's not going to fix itself in 2026. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through a few of the forces that actually matter, the ones that no headlines or politician wants to talk about, and why they make high housing costs likely for the rest of this decade. And this is not to scare you, not to tell you what to do, but just so you stop waiting for relief that structurally cannot arrive the way that people expect. So the first reason, supply is structurally capped. When people talk about housing, they usually start with demand. And this is something I talk quite a bit about on my videos if you've been watching for some time now. See, more people want homes, more people are moving, and more people are forming new households, having families and such. And that's true, but demand is not the problem. The real problem is that housing doesn't respond to demand the way people think it does. See, if prices spike for almost anything else, supply rushes in. If coffee gets expensive, more coffee gets grown. If cars get expensive, factories run overtime. Housing, it doesn't work like that, because you don't build housing where demand exists. You build housing where you're allowed to. In huge parts of the country, especially in places people actually want to live, it's either illegal or nearly impossible to build enough new homes to meet demand. I made a video about this recently that you can go check out. It talks about the restrictions with zoning and other permitting processes that need to change if we want to fix the housing crisis. See, it's not because builders don't want to build, it's not because there's not enough land to build, but it's because of these zoning rules, permitting delays, neighborhood opposition, and local politics that act like a choke point for this. See, you can have cheap land, willing builders, and high demand, and still nothing is getting built. And even when projects are approved, they don't respond quickly. Housing supply moves in years, not days, weeks, or months. By the time a new development breaks ground, the market conditions that justified it might already be gone, which means builders pull back, they cancel projects, or they reduce the size of them. So when prices rise, supply doesn't surge. When prices fall, supply doesn't flood the market either. It just stays where it is. So that's why the idea of we'll just build more houses and prices will fall sounds logical, but hardly ever plays out in reality. Because housing doesn't respond to price signals. It responds to permission, timelines, and right now, those things are all stacked against fast, meaningful increases in supply. Which leads to the next problem. And this one matters even more. Even if builders could ramp up building tomorrow, most existing homeowners have absolutely no reason to sell. Even if you fixed zoning overnight, even if builders suddenly got more aggressive, you'd still run into the biggest constraint in today's housing market. The people who already own homes don't want and often can't afford to sell them. Over the last decade, tens of millions of homeowners locked in mortgage rates that are historically low. 2, 3%, even less in some cases. That rate isn't just a number, it's a financial asset. Because selling a home today doesn't just mean giving up the house. It means giving up that low payment, one that most of us will probably never see again in our lifetimes. For many homeowners, moving would instantly double their monthly cost, even if they bought a smaller or cheaper home. So why would they list it? They don't. They don't upgrade. They don't downsize. They stay where they are. This is what people mean when they talk about that lock-in effect that I mentioned in my previous video. But this is more extreme than most realize. In past cycles, higher prices encouraged selling. People cashed out, people downsized, or they relocated. This time, high prices are discouraging movement because the replacement cost is worse than the current pain. And that breaks one of the most important feedback loops in housing. Homes used to recycle back onto the market. A family sold, another family bought, inventory refreshed. But now, that recycling process is completely frozen. And here's the part that most people miss. Higher prices do not create inventory. They create hoarding. Not because homeowners are greedy, but because staying put is the only rational choice. So that means inventory is going to stay low and competition is going to remain high. And every new buyer is fighting over that same limited pool of houses, which is why even small drops in interest rates or brief pauses in demand don't bring relief. They just bring everyone back at once. And that's exactly why price pressure never really goes away. Next, I want to explain why the thing everyone is waiting for, lower mortgage rates, doesn't solve this problem and often can make it worse. This is where most people's expectations completely break down. Because when you ask a buyer what they're waiting for, the answer is almost always the same today: lower interest rates. See, the logic is reasonable. Lower interest rates mean lower payments, and lower payments mean more affordability. But that logic only works in a market with excess supply. That's not the market we're in. In a tight market, which is exactly what housing is, lower rates do not reduce prices. They just increase competition. The moment rates fall meaningfully, something very predictable happens. Millions of buyers who were sitting out on the sidelines all move at the same time, not gradually, all at once. People who were waiting just in case suddenly feel urgency. Monthly payments begin to look more manageable again. Pre-approvals jump, and showings fill up. But the number of homes for sale doesn't magically increase. So what happens next isn't relief. It's bidding pressure. See, prices will stabilize, then they rise. Concessions, those disappear. Sellers regain their leverage. And we've already seen this play out multiple times over the last few years. Rates dip, demand surges, and prices reinflate. Not because buyers are irrational, of course, but because they're responding to the same signal at the same time. So lower rates don't change the supply problem. They just pour gasoline on the demand side. And here's the part really almost nobody is talking about. Lower rates actually make this effect worse. If rates fall from here, homeowners with ultra low mortgages become even less likely to sell. Now let me tell you why. Their payment advantage grows. Their incentive to move shrinks. So inventory stays tight while demand once again increases. And that's not a fix, that's a pressure cooker, which is why waiting for rates alone to save affordability has quietly failed again and again and again. And once you see that dynamic clearly, the next conclusion becomes unavoidable. This isn't something that resets quickly. It's something that drags on. And that's why in the final part of this video, I want to explain why these forces don't just last for a year or two. They're likely going to define the rest of this decade or longer. So at this point of the video, it should be pretty clear that housing isn't stuck because of one problem. It's stuck because of time. Every force that could actually change affordability moves slowly, painfully slowly. Zoning reform doesn't happen in months. It takes years of local battles, lawsuits, revisions. It takes years of local battles, lawsuits, revisions, and elections. And even when laws do change, housing doesn't just appear overnight. From approval to completion, large projects can take 5, 7, sometimes even 10 years to complete. And that assumes a few basic things: that there are no recessions, no financing pullbacks, or no political reversals, which almost never happens. Meanwhile, demand doesn't wait. People still graduate, they still form families, they still move for work, they still need places to live. So while supply inches forward, demand keeps compounding. Then there's demographics. A massive group of millennials are moving through their prime home buying years right now. Not someday soon, but right now. At the same time, baby boomers are aging in place, staying in homes longer than any generation before them. So that creates a bottleneck on both sides. Fewer homes coming onto the market and more people trying to buy them. And none of that resolves quickly, even under ideal conditions. This is why predictions that hinge on a single fix, like lower interest rates, new policies, or a mild recession, keep missing the mark on this. Those things can change the tempo of the market, they can create pauses, they can shift who has leverage temporarily, but they don't unwind the structural constraints. And once a market becomes structurally constrained, it doesn't just snap back, it grinds forward. That's what makes this decade different. Not because prices only go up, but because meaningful relief takes longer than most people expect it to. And that's the part nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs to understand. Because this isn't about timing the market perfectly, it's about recognizing the environment you're actually in and making decisions based on reality, not hope. So if this video changed how you think about the housing market, even just a little, that's the goal here. Not to tell you what to buy or when to act, but to help you understand the rules as they actually exist right now. Because most people don't get hurt in housing by making fast decisions. They get hurt by waiting for conditions that never return. If you want more videos like this, breaking down what's really driving housing affordability and the shifts most people miss, subscribe to my channel. I post when there's something worth explaining, not just something to react to. And if you know someone who's been stuck waiting for the reset, send this video over to them. It might save them a lot of time or prevent a costly mistake.